welcome back. Let's just jump right into it. So, there's always one thing every week that we get the most feedback on. It's actually from yesterday's Closer Look. We had a satellite explode in space. And the two things we heard the most is one, in space you would not hear an explosion. And in space, when a satellite exploded, the debris wouldn't fall straight down because of the lack of gravity. And it rankles me pretty bad because when we hire people into our graphics department, the two questions we ask them is, one, do you know how to do graphics? And two, do you understand how space works? And somebody pointed it out, wrote Jackals 1, Graphic 0. And you just couldn't be more wrong. They don't feel like this is a defeat at all. This is how they flirt. They make mistakes on purpose the way someone leaves like a perfumed handkerchief at a Victorian ball. And then I'm stuck going down there saying, guys, do you not know the properties of space? And they're like, oh no, did we get it wrong? Did someone find our mistake? And it's not just that. You know, we talked about last week, we talked about this problematic pigeon graphic where the nostrils were exposed. And so many of you said, that's, again, the least of the problem. What wall has bricks going that way? Like, when have you, and again, so that I'm down there being like, guys, what is this? And they're like, oh, is that not how bricks work? Did somebody find it and leave a comment? Pete Rose did not ever bet against the Reds. We had in the Closer Look that Pete Rose was on the phone with his bookies, and people wanted to make it very clear that he maybe did a lot of things. He bet on baseball. He never bet against his own team. All right, early days of corrections. We talked about the correct way to pronounce the Irish political position, the Taoiseach, which is like the Irish Prime Minister. We spent a lot of time talking about it. We went back and forth. Guys, this is a true thing that happened. Last week, the actual Taoiseach was in our studio, and nobody got me. Nobody thought, oh, that might be interesting to Seth, who's talked about it at length. I mean, what in the world? That's like somebody saying, yeah, no, Werner Herzog and Christoph Waltz were in the studio. But we didn't want to get you. We thought you were busy. They sound very different. So then I was, obviously I'm pretty angry. And I'm like, what, did nobody think to get me? And they said, well, we told graphics to tell you. And I'm like, graphics, did you? And they're like, we slipped a note under the door. And I'm like, my door? They're like, no. Just a door. People have been lamenting the fact that for as much as he's talked about, Shoemaker is never on camera. And that it would, enrich this experience if they knew what Shoemaker looked like. He's not, but here's the thing. He doesn't want to be on camera. He's not going to be on camera. So I will just to paint a picture for you, he is a fairly nondescript middle-aged man with the most lustrous head of hair. Like just long, like down to the shoulders. Just like a beautiful blonde mane. And he's always, like that's, the one, I've done impressions of him that I think are fairly accurate, but that's the one thing I do always leave out, because he's always like, who's asking? And he's always talking about like how he wants a new brush. It's like, I was walking down Fifth Avenue, I saw this gorgeous antique brush. But I can't afford it. One day I'm gonna get that beautiful antique brush. Some people said my Randy Newman, which I think we've established is good, sounds like Bill Cosby. I don't know. Roll down the window. Put down the top. Turn up the Beach Boys, baby. Hand me that Jello pudding pop. Called Andy Samberg last week, and I asked him to sing Fine Young Cannibals for us. I said, sing us the song She Drives You Crazy. People said the song is She Drives Me Crazy. That's what it is when he's singing it. But if you're asking another person to sing it, you switch the pronouns. So if I want him to sing She Drives Me Crazy, I have to say, sing She Drives You Crazy. That's just common sense. Also, people did not believe it was a real call. It was a real call. I did not think he was going to answer. I think we were incredibly lucky last week. I'll try it again here. See, that's real time right there. I guess we're not going to get him this week. That's how it works. Corrections. It's like watching sports. It's the thrill of the live. I referred to the Fast Five movie franchise. Fast Five was the name of one of the movies. I don't know which one. I also said that if I were in a Fast and the Furious movie, I would be a guy holding out a coffee, and then a car would come by and be like, whoa! And Vin Diesel would be like, ooh, latte, and throw it out the window. And people were like, hey, based on the way you did that, he would either have to be in the wrong lane or driving backwards. Does that not happen in those movies? Because I'm pretty sure in the trailers, Vin Diesel often says, hold on, and then just like, vroom. I did say that I also, a good role for me in the movie would be carrying across like a plate of glass. And someone said, I love that Seth Meyers thinks the Fast and the Furious movies are like 70s car chase comedies. It's a very fair observation. So I think if I were in a Fast, Furious movie, I bet a good role for me would be someone who would say something like, I get it, you're all a bunch of cowboys. I referred to Lillehammer, the Little Steven show on Netflix, and people said, yes, that is the name of the Norwegian city, but the show is called Lilyhammer, because that was how his character said it. So, also, not a correction, but I feel like we have underappreciated what a good actor Little Steven is. So that would be like a correction to how well received. I feel like we've underestimated exactly how great he was. I referred to Pavarotti as a B-list celebrity. Some opera enthusiasts took issue with that. But I should have said that, I should have made this clear. When I say B-list about an Italian, it means bellissimo. You guys, if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing sweater sleeves. So, last week my worst mistake was I referred to something that Patty Lyons sewed for me as a sweater. You guys all pointed out that it was a sweater vest. And it was a bad mistake, and I spent a lot of the week pretty upset about it, like mad at myself for missing something so easy. Because it was clearly a sweater vest, and I called it a sweater. And, you know, sometimes I am a little bit harder on myself than I maybe present out here. And I think Shoemaker noticed. Because today he came in with a gift box, and also all his hair had been cut off. And I said, oh my God, where's your hair? Where's your beautiful hair? And he said, you know, this wig maker's always been asking me for it. Said it was the most beautiful hair she ever seen. I sold it to her. And I was like, sold it to her, why? And he said, I wanted to get you something, because I see how down you've been. And he hands me this box. And I open it up, and it's these sleeves. And he says, now it's a sweater. You put that on the vest, you walk out there, you show those jackals who you are. And I said, I can't. I can't. And when he asked why not, I said, I sold the sweater to get you this. I think that's everything. See me next week.